big one. Ah!
All right, if you want to catch red snapper, you're in luck. It's actually one of the easier fish in the ocean to catch. That's thanks in part to conservation efforts. For about the past 10 years or so, red snapper has been mostly like a catch and release fishery, and that's really brought the numbers back. Not only has it brought the numbers back, but it's also brought fish closer to shore, which is nice because you used to have to go really deep to get red snapper. Now you can go catch them in 75 feet of water, and they're abundant in these depth ranges. So really, red snapper is one of the easier fish in the ocean to catch. They do have good eyesight, but they're not very picky. So you definitely want to be a little bit stealthy. So fluorocarbon, red snapper is one of the fish that I use fluorocarbon leader on, just because it might entice another strike or two. And my philosophy is if I have to spend a little bit more money to get fluorocarbon to catch 1 or 2 more fish per day, to me that's totally worth it. So most people will tell you that you have to use a high gear conventional reel for red snapper or bottom fishing in general. I couldn't disagree more. There's not a red snapper in the ocean that's going to beat me on a Penn Slammer 6500. It has 40 pounds of drag on it, so I can lock this down and not have to worry about it. And I have 50-pound braid on it. And I'm telling you, there's no red snapper out there that's going to break me off on this, unless he just beats me, unless he just outfishes me. I have it on a jigging rod rated for 50 to 100-pound braid. So this is an awesome outfit here. But yes, any heavy spinning gear will work, or conventional gear around the 50-pound braid, 50-pound line class and up. That way you can really get the drag on them and pull them off that bottom, because you catch a big one, they're going to try and wreck you as soon as possible. So you got to get them off that wreck quick. If they start pulling drag on you, you're done. Listen, there's only one rig that you should be using when you're targeting red snapper, and that is just your standard fish finder rig. I have 6 feet of 60-pound fluorocarbon leader here, tied to a 7/0 circle hook in line. Very important. A lot of places it's actually required to be in line now. And your weight, your egg sinker, is going to be really just the weight you need to get to the bottom and hold bottom. Okay, so you don't want to fish super heavy weight if you don't have to, but you do need to use the minimum to get you to the bottom where you are and to stick. So the key is with red snapper fishing is if you're fishing bottom, then you need to be holding bottom. Okay, what I mean by that is you want the weight to stay on the bottom, and you're actually rocking the rod tip back and forth with the waves, okay, to keep that weight stationary. That weight keeps bouncing up and down on the floor. You're gonna spook these fish. They're not gonna wanna eat. So let that weight sit on the floor, let that leader do its thing. You have 6 feet on the other side of the weight to allow that bait to do what it needs to do. And if you're not fishing bottom, then you need to have enough weight to hold you basically vertical. And so even if you're drifting, you want your bait to be your weight to be straight down, and then your leader can drift with the current sideways from that. So basically, like, here's your weight, and then 90 degrees, here's your bait. So that's also a good way to fish for them. So red snapper, they are bottom fish, but they will come up off the bottom. In fact, they'll come up all the way to the surface. So don't associate red snapper with you have to be on the bottom. If you're not getting hits on the bottom, a lot of people don't know this, but pull your bait up, bring it up 10 feet, bring it up 20 feet. A lot of times those bigger ones are going to be off the bottom. Okay, the smaller ones are going to hold tight to the bottom, but the big ones aren't afraid. They don't really have the predators that the small ones do. So they'll come up and they'll hang 20, 30 feet up off that wreck. And so if you're not getting hits, then try bringing it up. Another thing is, for me, I will fish one rod in my hand on the bottom, and then I'll put one rod in a rod holder, and I'll keep that one about 20 feet off the bottom. And I will give it just enough drag to where it won't get me into the bottom by the time I run over there and grab it and get him up. So, it's important. You don't want it too close to the bottom if you're not holding that rod, because he's going to reef you every time. But if you can get up about 20 feet, that'll give you a good solid chance to run over there, grab the rod, and beat him to it. So that's what I like to do, especially when I'm by myself. It gives me an extra opportunity to catch these fish. So when it comes to baits, red snapper eat anything. Squid, cigar minnows, croakers, pinfish, shrimp, sardines, pogies, the whole 9 yards. Whatever you drop down, they like it. Sometimes if they're not eating your dead bait, a live bait is king. Actually, a live bait is always king for the bigger fish. If you can drop down live pogies or live croakers, those big ones they can't resist. But the smaller ones, if you want to add those to the mix, then squid is a good option. Whole squid, try and drop a whole squid, a whole cigar minnow. And another bait that most people don't really think of that is an excellent red snapper bait, that's bonita. So next time you catch a bonita, don't throw them back. Keep them, chunk them up, and keep the skin on the chunks, because the skin is super heavy duty, and you stick your hook through there, and even when you get that strike and you miss it, chances are that bonita is still on that hook. You don't have to reel it up right away to check your bait because it's so solid. So that's a benefit to bonita. But yeah, the bonita is that secret weapon. If you don't have live bait, my dead bait of choice is going to be cut bonita. And then I'm going to go down from there. Squid is an awesome choice as well. There is another option too. I want to just throw it out there, and that is a knocker rig is something that you can use. However, I don't recommend using it the traditional way where you're just fishing straight up and down. You can use a knocker rig to where you actually cast away from the boat and let that weight drift down into the wreck on that knocker rig. And by the time it gets down to the wreck, hopefully a red snapper saw it and got it on his drop. Because once it hits the bottom on that knocker rig, it's not the best rig because the weight is right up on the hook. But on the drop, it's actually really good. It's a really good rig. So we're gonna go ahead and grab a bait. Okay, the first thing you're gonna do when you get out to your spot is get a flat line out there. While you're setting up to bottom fish, you should always have a flat line out, because you just never know what's gonna swim by and pick this up. And it's always an amazing thing when you catch a nice fish on a flat line that you weren't really expecting to catch. So you just never know what's going to swim by. That's the first thing I always do, is throw a flat line bait out and just let it sit there and do its thing. You know, keep the drag nice and loose. And you just never know. Get this up in a rod holder out of the way so it's out of your way until it goes off, and you're good to go. So we're going to go and bait up our rig. We have a dead cigar minnow here. We'll see what happens. I'm going to put him down whole. Sometimes I chop the tail off, which I'll do now. I just the fins. Keep it from spinning on the way down, and drop them down. I lock the drag down. This is why I put heavier line than my drag can handle. I have 50-pound braid on a reel where the max drag is 40 pounds. I just know that cupping it isn't really, adding pressure to stop the drag isn't really an option for me. But 40 pounds of drag is plenty of drag. So drop it all the way down to the bottom and see what happens. Where to catch the red snapper is pretty much anywhere that is 75 feet deep or deeper and that has structure. I'm talking about artificial wrecks, natural coral, natural structure. Then you have ledges, live bottom, and stuff like that. That's gonna hold red snapper. Anything that has structure is gonna hold red snapper. And the cool thing about red snappers, they're different from a lot of fish in the fact that they don't really travel much. If a red snapper finds a wreck that he likes or she likes, whatever, they tend to stay there. They'll call that home. They'll pick that as their home, and they won't move unless they absolutely have to. So a lot of times you go to this area that's your area, like you find it, not many people know about it. You catch a red snapper, and as long as you vent them properly and take care of them when you put them back down, you might actually end up catching that same red snapper again in the future. So that's pretty cool. So the spots are the spots you choose are really, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, you can go anywhere and catch red snapper. So, but you know, one thing you can do is you can get like a top spots map for your area, and they will tell you a lot of the artificial wrecks, if not all of them, in your area. And if you just bounce around from artificial wreck to artificial wreck, you will catch red snapper. Like I said, you know, start targeting them in the 75-foot range, 75-foot depth range, and go from there. If you are fishing in the East Central Florida area, I have some coordinates that I will put in the description below. Atlantic red snapper season is, today's July 6th, and it starts this Friday. July 10th, 11th, 12th, it's 3 days, so it's this Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then it's 1 day next week, which is next Friday, so it's a 4-day season. If you don't know where to go, pick one of these coordinates, get right on the numbers, drop your baits down, and you should hook up, because I visit these coordinates pretty often, and if I'm targeting red snapper on them, I always catch red snapper. Even when I'm not targeting red snapper on these wrecks, I catch red snapper. So you should be able to catch red snapper on these wrecks. Even if it's not on this 4-day season, if you see these coordinates, go out any time of the year. All right, go out any time of the year. Right now it's July, they're spawning, so it's the better time to catch these fish, but you can catch them year round. But the coordinates don't expire. Okay, the coordinates will be good forever. Let me know in the description below, or in the comment section below, if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer them for you. Also, please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to put out many videos like this, just helpful videos to help you learn how to fish, help you make you a better fisherman. I've been doing this a long time. It's absolutely my favorite thing to do. I'm out here offshore several times a week. Pretty much any chance I can get, I'm out here fishing. So I've learned a lot over the years, and you know, I'm not a professional fisherman, but I do have a lot of knowledge when it comes to fishing because it's my passion and I love to learn. So please subscribe to my channel. I think you'll be glad you did. And let's catch some snapper. Live croaker on. Let's see if we can catch a big one. I'm gonna go ahead and lock down the drag. Boy, that was a monster right there. I literally just set up, got smacked twice, and the thunderstorm was going in. There was literally no rain in the forecast today. So hopefully I have about maybe a couple minutes here, and I have a live croaker on, and let's see if we can get another one in. I really need to put the heat on right away. Make sure that I hook this fish. Oh, big one. Ah! There's some monsters down there. Absolute monsters down there. That's twice I got beat, okay? Listen, getting beat is part of snapper fishing around structure like this. Unfortunately, it's just a part of it. But, you know, it's all part of the fun. It's all in the fun. You just got to get back after them, you know? There's plenty of them down there. That's the good thing about red snapper fishing, is there's so many of them down there. If you lose one, it's not the end of the world. It's not like you're trolling for 3 hours and you finally hook a sailfish and he gets off the hook, you know? It's totally different, because all I gotta do is retie and hopefully get back on them. This is the storm that I have to outrun 10 minutes into fishing, and it's on fire right now. And it wasn't supposed to rain today.